Well, hello and welcome to the My Wool Mitten podcast. My name is Carrie and I'm coming to you from the middle of the Mitten, Michigan's Lower Peninsula, where I live on a small sheep farm with a flock of Shetland and Corriedale sheep, Bailey the good dog, Badger the farm dog, Bee Cat the good barn cat, and Kyle the wonder horse. My family is all around me. So this morning I'm going to try to talk through this really quickly and hopefully not make too many mistakes and have to stop and edit. It's a beautiful, beautiful day in August, and I'm looking over this way because Badger is coming to see what's going on. I tried to take some footage of him this morning. I don't know if it turned out or not. If it did, I'll include it. And if I could turn the camera around, now you're going to hear him drink. He's going to get a drink of water. But anyway, I'm not going to ramble on too much right now. Hopefully the light's okay. You can see some sheep back here. There's Coriander and her ewe lamb. I wanted to have the sheep in the background, but they've all gone out to pasture. They might wander back in while we're filming. So how's everyone doing? I hope you're doing okay. We've got a break in the humidity here, so it's supposed to be close to 80 today, but the humidity is way down and it's breezy. So I have plans to get a lot of work done today. Hopefully I can. Maybe I should move a little closer. Hopefully you can hear me. Let's just go with it. So I thought today, a lot of you have asked about Badger, the Livestock Guardian Dog that I got, and most of the interest on my channel seems to be about the sheep and the farm. So I'm going to talk about him a little bit, and we had something happen this week that I thought might make it a really good time to talk about him. So if you had come to this channel, or if you had asked me about this 8 months ago, at the beginning of the year or prior to that, one of my top 10 tips for getting started farmsteading or homesteading would have been to you, don't automatically run out and get yourself a livestock guardian dog. Just because you think you're going to be a homesteader, a farm owner, a livestock raiser, and just because a lot of people on the internet have livestock guardian dogs, don't get one until you know that you need one. They are work. They are a challenge, just in my limited experience or following along with others, and you have to have a need for them. And so that would have been my advice. I've never needed a livestock guardian dog, and I think they're fantastic, but I just never had a need for it. And I think I've seen so many people jump into it when they jump into farming or homesteading, and then they've ended up with trouble with neighbors, trouble with the dogs, trouble with the livestock, or they end up with a house pet. So if you're considering it, or if you're starting on a farm, really, really, really do your research before you jump into it. That said, I know a lot of people with them. I know people who raise them. And so I had a good resource if I decided I needed one. And the reason that I got a livestock guardian dog here on the farm now is not because of predators. I haven't, knock wood, had predator pressure on my sheep. We have fox family that lives here. They're okay. They don't bother the sheep. They don't bother the lambs. The Shetlands can absolutely take care of them, and they help control a lot of other problems. So I welcome the fox family. There have been coyotes, not recently, and I guess because our sheep can come to the barn maybe. Like I say, not to say it couldn't happen quickly, but it hasn't been a problem. If there was any predator problem, it would be from neighborhood dogs, and you'll hear almost every farmer or livestock owner tell you that. People's pets, people's dogs, even my neighbors who've been neighbors for a long time, and that know us and should know better, we've had trouble with their dogs. So, but I also have good fences. I have page wire fence with electric on the top and a strand of electric at the bottom. So that helps a little bit too. No, the reason I decided to get a livestock guardian dog is because my problem is white-tailed deer. And you've heard me talk about this if you've followed the podcast for a while. White-tailed deer here in my part of Michigan, I know a lot of other places too, are absolutely out of control. Out of control. If you're a person who likes to feed the cute little deer and who enjoys walking them into your yard, great, wonderful for you. I do not. When I have as small an acreage as I have, and I'm feeding what it belongs to my livestock, 60 head of deer in a night, It's crazy. It's ridiculous. I have a hunter who comes and hunts. He takes what he can, but a few deer out of a group don't do anything. And when we see does that are regularly raising triplets to maturity, that's an out of control population. Yes, we live with nature. Yes, we like to coexist. That is out of control. No different than you having Japanese beetles in your garden or, anyway, I'm getting off on a rant. So we've always had trouble with the deer. It's really gotten crazy. Oh, another thing, clearing out the woods. We have no undergrowth coming in the woods. It looks like it's been mowed because any sapling that comes up, other than autumn olive and multiflora rose, the deer mow down. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So that's always been a problem in our hay fields. I've not bought new seeding for my hay field because I might as well be burning the cash, because between deer, turkey, now cranes, and geese, it would never get anywhere, and seed is expensive. So anyway, but they hadn't been a problem here in my pasture. Partly, I think, because of the horse, because of Bailey. Even though she doesn't run loose, she does get to travel the pasture. And like I said, it's not super tall fence like for keeping deer out, but it is a fairly tall fence. It does have electric on the top. So we haven't really had trouble in these pastures here at this farm. Well, for whatever reason, I think probably because there are so many, and then also I had a time when I had to replace my fencer. I didn't hurry about electric fencer to keep the electricity on the top wires of the fence. I didn't hurry about doing that because I don't need that for the sheep. So it was one of those things, well, I'll just wait and get it. And I kind of dawdled along. Well, pretty soon I started to see deer in the sheep pasture and up close to the barn. And then I'd see more deer in the pasture. And I thought, I need to nip this in the bud and talk to so many people. I can't afford to do, 18-foot tall deer fencing around this little pasture, but nearly the consensus, the number one thing that I heard people that I respect or that have experience say was Livestock Guardian Dog, especially one that chases and barks. And so I thought, I thought about doing this. I didn't want to do it just yet, but maybe now is the time. And the reason for that is my friend Carrie from Kids and Critters Farm, who, if you did not see the interview I did with her, I'm going to link it down below so you can go and watch it. She raises Livestock Guardian Dogs, and she is the pups she has now this year are third generation to her of a cross that she does of Great Pyrenees and Anatolian Shepherd. She raises them with goats, with the baby goats, with sheep. They've had pigs and steers as well, rabbits, a whole passel of kids, and she's a 4-H leader. So her dogs are somewhat socialized, but they're also working dogs. And she had an unexpected litter in the fall of last year, and she had some pups still available. And my friend Emma, who owns Urban Meat Dreams Fiber Mill, who I've also talked about, was in need. She had an old LGD dog pass away and she needed a new one. So I went with her to Carrie's to pick out a pup for herself. And so we spent a day there, and I was so impressed and so intrigued. It was just before lambing season this year, and I thought maybe now is the time to do this before lambs hit the ground. And because I trust Carrie very much, of course I had a bazillion questions. I always thought that if I ever did get Livestock Guardian Dog, I would always get two. I don't want to breed. They would be spayed or neutered, but to have two so they could work together, be companions to each other, that whole thing. So I went at this, asking Carrie about this, talking about this with the plan of doing 2 dogs. But I went back and forth. Number one, it's a huge commitment. I'm experienced with dogs, not with Livestock Guardian Dogs. It's a big financial commitment. No matter what the dog costs, there's the veterinary care of it. My on-farm veterinarians will not do dogs, even Livestock Guardian Dogs. So then you have the dog that you've got to be sure that even if it's a guardian dog, you can put it in the car and take it to the veterinarian. getting a pup, I knew I'd have a spay or a neuter bill, all of that. I mean, I wanted to be a responsible pet owner, plus the feed. And I'm on a limited income. So all of those were considerations. But spent 2 days with Carrie, first with Emma and Carrie, and then my daughter and I went back to meet the pups. And I will probably insert some pictures if my video editor will let me do it. And she had a bunch of baby kids, baby goats. And we talked a lot, and I said too, I had different friends say to me, you know, this area is this farm is very small. It's only 10 acres, and the animals don't run the whole length of it. My ewe flock is only a dozen, and so it's not like the dog had a huge amount of ground to cover, territory to cover, or predator pressure, like I said. And Carrie, at first, she advised 2 as well. But then the more we talked about it, she thought, you know, we talked over my situation, and she said, you know, I wouldn't usually recommend just one, but I think it would work for you. And she happened to have the perfect pup for me. There was a pup in the litter who was very, he was a real loner. He didn't really stay with the other pups. He was very gentle and very quiet, and she does this with all her pups, but she rotates them in with just the baby kids, either the mamas who are having babies and then the brand new babies. And he was very gentle with him. There was no problem. He didn't chase barn cats. I was looking at his sister too. She, even while we were there visiting, she was not attacking, but just pestering the barn cats. Anyway, so there was all that to consider. And Carrie's husband, when we were talking, he said, you know, we'll be doing something and we'll think, oh shoot, this particular pup has run off. We can't find him when we're out doing things. And no, he's just gone back to the barn. He's laying in front of the stall where the baby goats are at or whatever. And all of that was really intriguing. I met him, and it just clicked. And if, you know animals, you know how sometimes that can be. So I went home, I asked Carrie if I could think about it, talk to the family about it. She was so gracious and so kind. And so there's another thing. If you are at all able to purchase a Livestock Guardian dog from a reputable breeder, I would say always do that. But someone who maybe knows your situation, which this was unique. Carrie is a friend. She's been to the farm. She knows how crazy I am about, obsessive I am about certain things. She knows my personality, and so she could work with me and the dog to be sure it was a good fit. And finally, she said to me, because my other thought was, what if I get him or 2 of them and it doesn't work out? You know, I'm going to be responsible for these dogs. And she said, as I think good breeders of Livestock Guardian dogs would say, if he doesn't work, I'll take him back. Well, then I knew, then he wasn't in danger of things going wrong. I wasn't in danger of things going wrong. And so at Easter time this year, in fact, on shearing day, and Carrie brought him to introduce him here to the farm, and Badger came to live with us. And to say that it went well from the start is an understatement. And I know that that's not always the case. I tried to be prepared for every scenario that might not work. I can't even begin to tell you how well it worked. Of course, Carrie was on standby. I could call her up and say, he's doing this. Should I do this? Should I do that? When we introduced him to the flock, and he went in with the Shetlands, at first they chased him. And he is such a good dog. He could have easily just said to them, hey, with a bark or a nip, this isn't okay. But he didn't. He did everything right. When they ran, he laid down. He lowered himself to the ground. He laid down. He put his head down, made himself not a threat. He stayed a distance from them. They went out to pasture. He went out. He went the perimeter of the pasture, which we had walked with him, circled them, didn't get in close. When they ran, he came behind them, but he stayed a distance behind them, so they didn't feel threatened. They didn't feel chased. 3 Shetland ewes, who I don't fault them. They were protecting themselves, but they were absolutely horrible to him. Like, knock him down and gang up on him. Didn't have to worry about coyote, fox, they were mean to him, and he would run off and cry. But not Style, not wintertime Style. My oldest Shetland ewe, my favorite Shetland ewe. She had always been the guardian of the flock. If the flock was out to pasture and the fox were out there, she would go out and keep herself between the flock and the foxes. If a dog came, she'd be the first one to the fence. She didn't attack, but she just always was kind of the one who was aware of things. She took a look at Badger. The other ewes had been beating him up. Here she came, and I've got some pictures, and she just came over to him. She sniffed him all over. He laid down. She sniffed every inch of him. She put her head, it just, I can't hardly talk about it, the way that she welcomed him into the flock and caused the other ewes to accept him. And they bonded. They bonded so closely. Like, she was his foster mom, and he stuck with her pretty much. Her and him, like, the sheep would all be inside. Where's Badger? Where's Style? And they'd be out going the perimeter. She'd stay with him when he went out and patrolled. So that started quite a relationship between the two of them. Well, she was older. She was bred. And she was starting to have teeth issues, which with an older sheep is a problem, no matter how healthy they are. And I knew that we probably didn't have a lot more time with her. But she was bred. She lambed and had a ram lamb, and that was fine with Badger. Now Badger had a little brother. Badger is the name of the Livestock Guardian Dog. So anyway, that's been quite a treat to watch them and to watch him, to watch how he reacts to deer in the pasture, which has been fantastic, to watch him react to people who come to the farm. If it's someone who's okay and I introduce them, how he reacts. If it's someone that he doesn't know, I have no doubt he would come over the fence and be protective of me as well as the sheep. The way he guides the sheep, if there's something in the pasture he doesn't like, he's not a herd dog, he's not like a border collie, but he makes the move. I'm gesturing down here and you can't see. He makes the move, he kind of drives them to the barn, and then he goes back to make sure everything's okay. And I can see in watching that where two would be a plus. As Carrie said, where one stays with the flock, the other goes to investigate or chase off whatever is they're perceiving as a threat. So I can see where two would do that, or where he could one would rest while the other was working. Now in Badger's case, most of you know, if you've watched for any length of time, my sheep have access to the shed all the time, and so they come in and rest out of the sun for lengths of time, or in the shade of the barn, and he rests when they rest. That's what he does. Didn't have any trouble with him at lambing time. But I did have those couple of Shetland ewes that just would not accept him. And I don't fault them for that, but they actually got to be, I got knocked down more than once. My daughter got knocked down, where if they saw him, if he was nowhere near them, they would make a run and be after him. And if I happened to be there, it didn't matter. So those ewes have gone to the other pasture where Badger's not at, and they're going to a new home. They're going to be fiber pets for someone who doesn't have a Livestock Guardian Dog. So they're going to have a good home, and the peace and calm in the flock now, with Badger there and with nobody fighting with him, has been really nice, has been really wonderful. So I can't tell you how many things he's done, and I've had to learn, like, my reaction so quickly was to, if I saw him doing a behavior I wasn't sure about, to start to scold him. I've learned to be quiet and wait and see what he's doing, because most of the time he has a reason for what he's doing. Just this week, I saw the ewes kind of moving from the pasture to the barn. They were a little hawky, something had them a little nervous, but they weren't running hard like something was after them. I saw Badger trailing behind them. They stopped, and they were looking back towards the woods, which I'm looking towards now. They were looking back towards the woods. He laid down when they stopped. Then he wanted them to keep moving, so he got up and he kept them moving until they got to the barn, and then he turned back He's a huge dog, nose in the air, looking back towards the corner of the pasture, sniffing the air, and then he went back out there. I don't know what it was, you know, could have been a fox, could have been anything, but something that he didn't like, and he kept his flock safe. So I am so impressed with him and so in love with him, and I appreciate Carrie so much. I couldn't recommend her enough. I really like this cross. We've worked with him. My friend Emma gave me these tips. I've worked with teaching him to sit, having him come. Sit doesn't always work, but I can somewhat do it. And grooming him, because he's got so much fleece. I wanted to be able to groom him, keep him from having mats, having trouble. And he comes out from the flock. He doesn't work while he's eating. So he comes out twice a day to be able to eat by himself and drink, for me to spend some time with him. And then that's usually when I groom him. And he's very good about it. Hasn't been any trouble. He isn't neutered yet. Carrie recommended to wait at least till he's a year, which isn't until October. And I thought that would be nice to wait till colder weather to get that done. I've worked on getting him in the car. It's not easy. He does not want to leave his flock. So that's going to be a little trouble. Hi, sweetie. There's a little lamb down here, but I don't think you can see her. A little black lamb. But so we're going to have to work on that. But luckily with a neuter, he can come home the same day and he can recuperate here. That's my long-winded tale about the Livestock Guardian Dog. And there's one more thing that I have to tell you, and I hope I have time to put it on here. This weekend, we had to put Style to rest, the old Shetland ewe. We had hoped she'd make it another to the winter. We weren't going to breed her again, but she started going downhill. We'd been feeding her separate, taking care of her, but it was time. And so while the vet was here doing some work, we laid her to rest. And I really worried a lot about Badger. The thing about Style too is, bless her heart, I probably wouldn't have kept the Shetland sheep if it wasn't for her. When I got that flock, even the tame ones, they didn't accept me as their shepherdess. They weren't happy here at the farm. They'd lived all their life somewhere else. And it was a difficult transition for them and for me. But she was the constant. She was calm. When they wouldn't come to the barn, she came, they came with her, they followed her. She was the leader. I wish she'd have given me a ewe lamb this year, but she didn't. But I used a son of hers the last 2 years, so I have some granddaughters of her to stay in the flock. And of course, when it was time to put her down, I didn't want Badger and the other sheep inside of here. But I had to physically remove him from her being penned inside. So spent a little extra time with him. So animals are pretty amazing, aren't they? And even with 27 other sheep here with ewes and lambs, there's a big hole. The barn is pretty lonely to have Style be gone. But that's part of farming too. So anyway, I hope that you are well. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Please be kind. I hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Talk to you soon. Bye.